Thank you so much for taking time this evening to join us for this information session for Pewabic students. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes. As you probably noticed as you were coming on, this is being recorded. This is because we are going to be making this information available on our student portal of our website. So I'll make another note of this when we move into the Q&A at the end because I will be opening up for questions after. I just ask that students keep all questions and comments related to the application-based registration process, just so for recording sake, if you have questions or comments about anything else related to education, you can reach out to me anytime at education@pewabic.org. So again, just as a note, this session is being recorded. We're just going to give it a few more seconds for people to log on. Okay, I'm going to get started again. Thank you all for joining this evening for this student information session about application-based registration, which we are changing to for this upcoming winter registration. So again, this is going to be a repeat for most of you, but just as a note, this is being recorded for student access to this information on the student portal. So we're just asking that all questions and comments related to the application-based registration process. So I first want to start off with just as an introduction of why we're making this change, just really quickly. I think this is going to be obvious to a lot of you, but just as kind of an overview, really one of the things that we want to do is to reduce the stress of registration for both students and staff. I think we all recognize that the demand for our classes and the timing for sellout creates a stressful environment for many people on registration day. And oftentimes we find that the rush of registration sometimes even has people just grabbing any classes or offerings that they can get access to, which sometimes results in a lot of like returns or classes that maybe aren't even always the right fit for someone, but at least gives them access to the studio. And so that is another thing that, we really want to focus on with making this change is helping to have better class placement for students versus just selecting for studio access. And then, kind of most importantly, we wanted to be able to prioritize return students, especially those that are seeking education and growth within their practice, because of course our focus is to be an education studio. So we have kind of tried to approach this in a couple of different ways over the years of working here. One way that we've attempted to make this change is we had a membership-based registration period. And that worked really well for us for a while during a time when our classes were much less in demand and Pewabic, frankly, had less kind of community support. And so today, this is drastically, if we kept this process, it would actually drastically widen the student pool. As we have over 1,200 members currently, that this experience would be advertised to. Right now, because we kind of have a regenerating population of students, as you notice, we do not advertise that. We're not, trying to push all of you out by advertising to the public. This would kind of force us to advertise to members. We've also considered returned student registration periods of kind of having two different registration days. But after kind of going through a couple of different options with that model, we realized it's not really a sustainable model for the staffing size that we have here at Pewabic. So the reason why we chose this application-based model after all of these options of exploration is we actually did a lot of studying of different community education models to kind of find the best solution to our specific issue. And we found that of all of the different options, that application-based models allowed us to hit a lot of our original goals, as I mentioned in the beginning, of reducing stress of the registration timing, helping to better place students in classes that fit their needs, and allows us to prioritize return students who are seeking education and growth within their practice. I do want to note, and I'll mention this later too, this is just something that we're trying that is new. A lot of other studios have had, especially ceramic studios even, have had a lot of luck with this structure. But we don't know that this is something we're going to be doing forever. We do think it's worth trying something new. I think a lot of us understand that, we need to make some kind of change about how we're going about this registration process. So we do really, really appreciate everyone's patience and like open-mindedness as we try this new process. And so we will likely be getting feedback from everyone just to kind of see how we feel after going through this. So I'm going to talk a little bit next about how this will work. And then after, I'm going to open up for any questions that people have related to this process specifically. So first, before I get into the different steps of this process, I do want to note that all of the dates related to this change are posted in on the student portal calendar. So if you check out the student portal, the calendar section there, all of the applicable dates are listed on our website. So let's go through the different steps of this process. We've broken it down into 4 different steps that hopefully will help kind of guide us through this. And at different points of this process, I'm going to be screen sharing so that you all can see some of the forms and like rubrics we're going to be using for this process. So step 1 for this application-based process is to actually apply for winter classes. So the winter 2026 schedule and the application portal is going to be posted on October 24th. And so when that is populated, there will actually be a Google form available that you will be using for your application process, which we're going to take a look in a second. So you're going to go through, fill out your application, and those applications are due on November 14th. So you have some time to go through, again, a lot more time than the 1 minute you have on registration morning. So I am going to, before we talk about the next step, I just want to pull up this Google form so that we all know what step 1 will actually look like when we all go to do it. So I'm moving to screen share here. Hopefully you can all see this. Okay, so this is going to be what you're going to see when you go to pull open the application on Google Forms when you go to apply. So, and I did not mention this yet in this talk. This is for intermediate and advanced classes only. And I'll mention this again at the end, but beginning level classes are going to stay with the same public-based registration process we've had for classes in the past. So in here, it kind of gives information about what applications are based on. You'll go through and enter your email, your full name, and then section 2 goes into class selection. So in this, you're going to actually go through and choose your top choice for classes, your second choice for classes for session 1. And then same thing you're going to do for session 2, your top choice for session 2 and your second choice for session 2. So let's say if you really for session 2 really want to get into Monday hand building with Katie, but you're like, if I can't do that, I would not mind, you know, Wednesday intermediate hand building with Kevin. So it's good to go through the schedule, get a sense of what, classes you're interested in, because if one is full, it gives you the option of potentially getting into that second one. Then you go into classes, questions like, have you taken classes at Pewabic before? Again, we want to make sure we are retaining return students, so this helps us to identify that. We're going to ask you to list the classes you've taken and just approximate dates, how many you've taken the past 12 months, and that wraps up section 2. Section 3 gets a little bit more into your experience and skill level. Of course, this isn't about choosing only the most skilled students. It's about getting the right fit for your class. So it asks you to kind of describe your experience in ceramics, your skill level, areas of growth you're hoping to focus on, what you're interested in getting from your classes, whether or not you're committed to attending, if you're able to attend the full session, if you're willing to be placed on a wait list, questions like that. Now, all of these questions, and this section 3 kind of wraps up the Google form. So this gives you a sense of what you're going to be seeing when you go to apply. A lot of these questions, again, were based off of studies that we've done of other community education models. And also, these will help us kind of evaluate who gets into each class, which I'll go into in the next step. So this wraps up step 1. After I would fill all of this out, I add in the questions that I'm interested in, and I want to make sure my application is in before the November 14th due date to ensure that I get into the class that I want. So moving on to step two, that's when we are going to be moving into the evaluation process. So again, after all the applications are submitted on or before November 14th, these applications will be compiled and reviewed by a group of staff and instructors. So I next want to walk through the evaluation rubric. Just we thought it was good to be fully transparent, so hopefully you can still see my screen here. This is the application-based education model evaluation rubric that we are going to be using for this process. And so it's broken down right now into four different criteria sections with parameters to help us get a sense of basically a score to help us decide who gets into each class and how we kind of prioritize that list and create the wait list. So, for example, criteria number one is about previous experience in the studio. And it includes some of the parameters, like excellent score would say extensive and positive prior experience with the studio, shows consistent growth, and kind of measures down to little to no experience with the studio or history of disengagement. So really making sure that we want to prioritize students that are interested in learning, that align with the goals that we have for the studio. And so that's criteria number one. The second criteria would be going into some motivation and goals. So clearly defined ambitions and goals surrounding learning and skill development, personal growth in ceramics and education, demonstrates a strong desire to engage with the studio as a learning environment. And then that kind of clicks down to needs improvement, just to show the two ends of the scale for motivation and goals. Goals lack focus on education or personal development, primarily interested in using studio resources for production. So as you all know, that's something that we have a hard time with the studio. And so we really want to make sure, again, as an education studio, that education is the primary focus for all of us involved. So that kind of helps with that. The next piece of criteria is class fit. So that one, we really want to make sure that this is the class offering fits into the goals of each student. Versus people feeling like they just need studio access, which I think a lot of time came from the rush of our registration. So again, showing two different ends of the scale. Kind of the highest end is saying that, a student has excellent fit for the selected class offerings, skills and goals align with the class structure and other participants. And the other end of that scale would be a poor fit for current class offerings or likely to disrupt class dynamics. I do want to note, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is not going to be one person that is deciding any of this. This is going to be a group of individuals, including the instructor of that class, that will be helping go through and put things through the rubric here. The last one is community fit. And again, just kind of describing the two different sides of this spectrum here. We have on the top end a strong sense of community engagement, contributes to studio culture, respectful of staff and fellow students. And on the other end of the scale, we have shows minimal engagement with community, treats the studio primarily as a social space rather than collaborative working environment. So again, making sure that we really want to make focus on education, on growth within our practice. Of course, we know that the social element is a really important part for all of us, but making sure that why we're selecting the classes we are kind of go into the educational model. So again, this is kind of built from studying a lot of other community models. We are not the only ceramic studio that is either employing this or considering it. I know even a lot of other local studios have similar kind of evaluation and application systems in place. So again, this is just something that we feel the need to try, knowing that we've had a lot of pinch points within the system. So this is kind of the evaluation rubric that will be used. The results, so after each person submits this, so again, we're jumping back into step two. All applications will be reviewed using this rubric, which will kind of allow us to determine an acceptance list and a wait list as well, which then would be in order depending on how everyone is evaluated through this process. Okay, so that is the end of step two. I'm going to stop screen sharing now and come back to just this. Now, step three would be the notification process. So all of the results will be compiled and notifications will be sent on November 21st. So that is step three, is to be notified of your class placement. And then for step four, for some of you that did get into a class payment, then you're going to be moving into, or I mean, to the class, you're going to be moving into class payment. A link will be sent to you, and payments are due on November 25th. So again, a lot more breathing room around all of this process, which hopefully makes a much more stress-free step. Now, for those that are waitlisted, you will then be notified if there is an opening in your class that might be potentially due to like someone needing to do a return or having a scheduling conflict. And the wait list again will be the order of that will be determined by the rubric score from that evaluation process. So it kind of populates the wait list for us as well. Um, so again, those that do get in will get a link for payment, and those that don't will be notified if anything opens up. So those are kind of the four steps of the process. I know there's probably quite a bit of anxiety just because this is something that's new, but we're hoping that like with some time and some tweaking, because of course we're going to have some adjustments to make. So we will be eager to hear how everyone feels after we go through this step. But we're kind of hoping that even if it's a little bit anxiety producing right now, making a big change, it will make a much more stress-free experience as we move forward, as we get acclimated to this. So again, just a few more notes before I move into some questions is again, this change is only for intermediate and advanced classes only. So beginning level offerings here will continue with the same public registration that we had previously. Okay, I'm going to be open up to questions. Again, we're just asking that these are specific to the application-based process. And any additional questions that you have about our education offerings, please feel free to email me at education@pewabic.org. Okay, any questions?
I have a question. Can you guys hear me? I'm
Yep.
using AirPods. Yeah. My curiosity was about how will it be regulated if you don't make the application process? Are you, is it going to be regulated to not sign up for beginner? Does that make sense? Like, will anyone that applied for the intermediate or advanced, they don't get in, will they be prohibited from signing up from beginner? Because I feel like that kind of defeats the purpose of why we're doing this anyways, right?
Yep. Yeah, we do ask that the beginning level class is a great question. Thanks for bringing it up. And this is honestly one of the reasons this question and that kind of funneling that could happen is one of the reasons we were kind of hesitant to make this kind of change. So that might be something where in the future our beginning level classes go through the same type of application process. We just wanted to, again, prioritize return, long-standing return students. So any of those parameters for our classes of needing those to be beginners, that wouldn't change. So, that's why, we do ask that people kind of watch out for that. If we find beginner level classes are being totally inundated by intermediate and advanced students, then that's something we're going to reapproach moving forward. Again, maybe adopting, um, an application-based process, or maybe even doing returns for those where the class is not a good fit for them.
I had a quick question. Can you
Yep.
guys hear me?
Yep.
Um, as far as people's availability, like those people work 9 to 5s, are we gonna? Is that going to be factored into the application process?
Yeah, I think that's something where, the classes that you select through that should be, that can kind of help us see like what you're available to do, right? So if you're not available for a daytime class or certain ones don't fit your schedule, then making sure those don't fall within those four selections that you have, right? So if you say, you know what, I want either A or B, and I know those work for my schedule, then hopefully that kind of works out. Now, none of this process that we're doing is by saying like, oh, this is our perfect opportunity of getting rid of X, Y, and Z. We really want to figure this out with each of you. So if we do find that there's like some kind of catch point or something, Especially again, we want to work this out with all of you as long as this feels like a good fit for your class. You want to kind of fit within the same parameters of what we're focused on. We really want to figure that out. So we're going to be, I'm sure, finding some catch points and we're going to have to talk through those. So I just appreciate this is a good question. Things like these are good questions and allows us to kind of think through what improvement processes we're going to have in future registration. So good question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are these classes gonna be completely filled through the application process, or are you gonna leave some spots open for the regular registration?
These are going to be filled through the application. So any intermediate and advanced would be that. The only regular registration would be just those beginning level classes. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm curious how you guys define intermediate, or if you have chatted about like how you might describe that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Typically the beginning level classes are truly like introductory. A lot of the times introductory for people coming into our studio for the first time, working with ceramics for the first time. Intermediate is typically like one step beyond that. So it's a little bit more of an advanced education than the early classes. A lot of the times, the majority of the times, those getting access to those are students that now have an understanding, like a prior understanding of the education studio. So I think that's the thing that, those beginning level classes aren't just about an intro to the material, but also learning the studio. As you all see, there's like, it's a pretty small space that we fit a lot of activity into. And so there's nuances in understanding the flow of like, what is the life of a ceramic object in there? How do I work within this space with so many other people? And so those beginning level classes don't even just introduce you to clay, but also those elements too. So I would say intermediate is when you start to break beyond that, you start to understand the studio layout, and start to get a little bit more into like, what is clay as a material and how do I advance my skill? Hopefully that helps answer
I
your
have a
question.
question.
Hi, Santa.
Hi. Um, are you going to be giving more preference to students that go year round, or does it matter? Because I mean, I only can take 2 to 3 classes a year. I can't go year round. So
Yeah.
is that part of the rubric that you're doing? Are you giving preference to full-time students versus part-time students?
That's a good question. And no, I would not say that full-time students would gain a better priority. I think what's more important and why we included questions about like, when have you taken classes? When was the last time? It's more of kind of what I was just talking to is, do you have an understanding of how our studio currently works? Education's been offered here for so many decades that sometimes we have people resurface and they're like, yeah, no, I'm advanced. I took a class here in 1970s. And so, the studio operates, as you all know, like we change frequently, it changes like our material access, our equipment. And so it's really, those questions are really more to get a sense of like, do you understand the current operations of how we kind of work? If not, then it might be helpful for you to do like a beginning level as kind of an introductory studio thing. So no, I wouldn't say, because we know that we have people that are like working professionals that have different elements of their life. So I would not say that you have a leg up by doing year-round classes, but it certainly helps to know that you've taken some kind of class or classes here in the last few years. So good question. Any other?
Speak up. Hey, hey, Annie.
Hey.
I got a question. I understand the introductory classes for, let's say, throwing and hand building, but what if it's like tile making? I've never done that. So it's really introductory to me.
Mhm.
How are you going to deal with that?
Tile making is remaining as a beginner level
Yes.
class. So it is technically a beginning level class. Slip casting, Josh has decided that he does want an application for that, but tile making is a beginning level class.
Good question. Thank you.
So we'd have to go in the lottery thing or whatever. All right. The 1 minute timer. That's fine. Okay. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Good question. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yep.
What are you going to do about people who have taken the same class over and over? Are you going to, with this application process, be able to make some of those spots available to people who have not yet taken them? How is that going to work?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. We don't want to, our main intention isn't to like, just, break up any social situation. But, again, our main focus here is to be an education studio. So we may find, for a variety of reasons, which again, the rubric, as you all saw, and that's going to be group based, isn't really necessarily asking questions guiding into that. But making sure that, the fit is based on like what is the focus of the class and are the students' goals fitting within that? Now, we might find that, that these things might line up or they might line up a little bit differently than if we did a full-blown like public registration like we typically do. However, as most of you have kind of have noticed, we, as much as we like to maintain some kind of consistency, our teachers are not always available on the same night. So we've been seeing more and more kind of like scheduling change ups and like, classes that have been in one night for many years are now having to shift to a different night just due to instructor availability. So I do think that some of those things are naturally starting to kind of happen a little bit just due to like scheduling. But yeah, we're hoping that people will be able to experience the type of class that they're interested in. And by reducing the stress of this, then maybe people aren't just grabbing classes just because it gives them access. Well, that's taking opportunity away from someone that really wanted that specific class. So, we're hoping that by people being able to be a little bit more thoughtful and take some time into thinking about what they want, that we can open up the availability for those where that would be truly a good fit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? I'm sure you're going to think of more. I know this, again, this is a big change for us after dealing with, registration in one way. So I'm sure that you're going to come up with more questions or think of things, especially once that Google form is made available and you're clicking through it. Again, you still have some time between when the winter schedule is posted and that form is up. You still have a good cushion of time between that and when those applications are due. So I'm sure you're going to come up with questions, thoughts, during that time. And again, please feel free to reach out to me, education@pewabic.org. The education studio staff, Lauren, Michelle, Aaron May, we're here to answer questions and help guide through this process. But again, this is new to us too. So I'm curious how it goes. I'm eager to hear your feedback. And I really do think that some kind of change is necessary because that last registration, especially with the tech issues of the last one. So I'm eager to see how this goes. I'm eager to hear what you all think. And again, if you think of any other questions beyond this, please feel free to reach out. But I appreciate you all taking the time to tune in this evening. Hopefully this helps. If you missed any details of this or tuned in late or anything, this again will be posted on the student portal of our website. So you'll be able to rewatch all this again. Hi, Greg.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Just a quick question. I understand that the schedule is coming up on the 24th of October. Can you share any of, will there be the same number of classes as there was previously, or are you adding more classes?
Yeah, Lauren, do you want to speak to the schedule for winter?
So we have the same amount of classes that we did last session.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think actually session 1, we have one less because of Monday holidays, which is usual for winter 1.
Right.
Because we have 2 holidays up. Yep.
Yep. Good question, Greg. Any other questions before we wrap this up for this evening?
I have a quick question. I don't know if, I mean, it's kind of relevant. I believe it's relevant, but will the studio hours be the same? Like, will there be offerings for more late night? Or is that just going to kind of remain the Thursday night being late?
Yeah, Thursday night, late night open studio. Lauren, I don't believe we have any plans beyond that for this session. Is Lauren there?
I was just saying we'd have to eliminate night classes, which a lot of the people who work from 9 to 5 would kind of be disappointed with having less classes.
Gotcha. Okay. Just curious. Okay.
Okay, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining in, for taking the time this evening. I'm sure you'll come up with more questions. You can reach me at education@pewabic.org or adennis@pewabic.org. Both reach me. And so I look forward to hearing how this process goes. Hopefully it's much more stress-free for all of you. And I hope that we're all able to get into the classes that we're looking to. So I look forward to seeing you all in the studio soon. And until then, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank
Thanks, Annie.
you. Thanks.
Thank you.